This moment would finally be the validation for all the long nights and the debt he'd accumulated through taking such a leap. He moved down the hallway with his crowd of 10. His cast and crew all seemed to have this uneasy, but excited tone about them as they walked. He opened the auditorium doors and found an almost empty room.
Everything that we were working for that day I was fucking crestfallen. Like we failed. I'm sitting in a very empty movie theater, seeing it up on screen for the first time that big. And finally I'm like, oh my God, everyone keeps cursing. Like, it's so filthy. What was I thinking? And like, I spent 28 grand on this. I'll never be able to pay that back. We're ruined.
That young filmmaker was Kevin Smith. He's a hero of mine. I love his early work from Clerks to Chasing Amy to Dogma, and more recently to a lesser extent Tusk and Red State. He built an empire out of dick jokes and pop culture references when others shunted these prospects.
No, what else can you get there?
Well, I believe you can get this fine selection of merchandise you see behind you, as well as see props from all your favorite View Askew movies.
Though his business acumen and films are influential, they're not the reason I looked him as a hero. He's a hero because of his drive to create his first film, Clerks. In 1992, Smith was working at a convenience store in Highlands, New Jersey, where he grew up. He was 20. He had no real drive for anything after high school, and he seemed to drift for a while as he worked at Quick Stop and RTS Video. I might have missed the boat. This is the summer I break up with my girlfriend, presumably for good, leaving me lots of free time. She tells me I'm directionless. I'm not pursuing anything, just working in the store. She's going to college, she's on the fast track. I'm realizing I am directionless. And suddenly, we're on the outs and I have nothing to do. On Smith's 21st birthday, he went downtown with one of his friends, Vincent Pereira, to see the newly released Slacker, directed by Richard Linklater. That's the movie that pushed me. It was like, oh my God. The whole ride home, I'm like, look how simple it is. It's like there's nothing going on. It's dialogue. I can do this. This is the movie because this is approachable. Less than a year later, Smith would start production on his film Clerks. The film would cost the selling of his personal possessions, all of his life savings, several maxed-out credit cards, and the minute salary he made as a convenience store clerk. This would add up to a little over $27,000. Smith took a leap of faith, and to me this is truly an inspiration. No one told him to, and no one told him he had the ability to make a film. Like so many other places in America, Highlands, New Jersey was no place to make a film. There was no connections, no reason to believe that anyone would care.
I think that helped. I think it helped being absolutely fucking naive and completely guileless and such a rank amateur, because you didn't really think about the possibility that it might not pan out for you.
I guess it fixed itself.
Wow! I think we're retarded because all we did is go.
It was the last time I was shooting with them. They had become my friends. I met them only a few months ago, but I really felt like I had gained something new and interesting about their story through my quick, shaky footage. At that point, they were in my mind on the cusp of really becoming something, and I anxiously awaited the next step. This didn't happen. They would implode a few weeks after this, and for me, the film would get shelved. I had succumbed to the rational, and would become trapped by what the making of Clerks represented. A push against the idea of what you create will be confined by the place and your connections in the film scene.
I think that's mostly commercials and industrials, things like that.
Many other filmmakers at this time would take very similar leaps that Kevin had taken with their first films, such as Richard Linklater and Spike Lee. The reason I'm making this is to measure the insanity of such a leap today, using the guidelines provided by one of the most immersed personalities of the indie scene in filmmaking in the 90s, John Pearson. He was an indie film rep in the 90s and would sell, among others, Do the Right Thing, Roger and Me, and eventually Clerks. In his book, Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes, John outlines how Smith and other filmmakers used their resources to make their first films viable. Most films made this way usually did not have an established budget, but most worked around the assumption of $25,000 being a good number to hit. So that I can break down the numbers comprehensively, I will use the budget Kevin Smith gave to Miramax when Clerks was bought for distribution. The number was $27,575. Measured for inflation, that leaves us young filmmakers with $46,341.08. Anyway, Pearson had a number of guidelines of how many filmmakers made their first independent films with a similar budget. Most of these are great and need no comment, but I want to talk about the most important revisions we have to make to this list. 5 and 7 have been the bane of filmmakers' existence for as long as independent film has existed. The need for film, processing of said film, and eventually the editing. All of these used to be expensive, and in my opinion simply took away from the actual making of the film in many respects. In the world of digital, there's been a revolution where no one can tell themselves wholeheartedly that movie making can't be an option. Cameras are cheap and accessible and are getting easier every day to attain. To give a reference point in how crazy a leap Clerks was, let's look at what they used, how much it cost, and how that compares to now. On the set of Clerks, they used a camera, a sound recorder and mic, 3 lights, a tripod, a dolly, and film. I want to give the modern equivalents, but I should say that this place is not somewhere where I'm an expert. I've always been someone who's done everything by themselves. In this, I've kept costs low. No crew, no budget, just what equipment I could get my hands on. When it comes to the equipment you will use, there's no universal kit that every filmmaker should have. There are obviously so many ways to go in this category, but I'm going with what I've personally used. With all my resources, I spent around $1,600. Now let's see how we did against Clerks' budget. Looking at all of this, it really is amazing to me. We cut out so much of the original budget by simply having better access to the technology we have today. $1,690 is the budget for my last documentary. $27,000, which today is over $40,000, was what Smith had spent as that first screening had ended. I can only imagine what he was thinking. This was the only way for him to make it. He'd done everything that he had read was possible. He found himself becoming disgusted with what he had created. Cut to the last few days of my first semester of college. I hadn't finished anything. I was terribly depressed and felt like all I could do was nothing at all. This is footage from a film I was going to finish, about my inability to finish anything. It was an exercise in self-hate, and for that reason it played into my self-loathing. I hated the film. I hated what I had become. Soon after, it ironically would never get finished. It was not a good time.
The world is full of fucking why, man. You tell people something, they'll tell you why. Throw a rock and you'll hit somebody with why. Like, hey man, I want to make a movie. Why? Why do you think you could do that? Why? Why? Nobody else is doing it. Why are you doing it? There's so much fucking why. You go out and you find why not. You surround yourself with why not. People are just like, why not? Where you're like, hey man, I'm going to try something. Like, all right, why not? Let's give it a shot. People who will try to help you do your dreams, make your dreams come true and shit, and you do the same for fucking them. We're all in this together, and it costs nothing to encourage a fucking artist. That's why I get up here for almost 20 years now after the movie, man. There ain't a lot of filmmakers get up after the movie and spend more time than the movie itself talking. But I've been trying to impart one simple lesson for nearly 20 fucking years. Anybody can do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't born into a business or the film business or born with a mic in my hands. I have no fucking discernible talent whatsoever, man. I have no connections to the business. We're from fucking New Jersey and stuff. I got lucky. Somebody picked up the movie and boom, I was off and running. And part of that manifest when you're brought into the indie film community, part of your job, part of your honor, part of your privilege is to make sure that keeps going, to encourage other people, you know, to tell people it's worth the shot. Just like Wayne Gretzky said, like, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. It's always worth the fucking shot.